All right, we're going to give people a couple minutes to get in. And while we're waiting, there is an app you can download that you can take notes with, and you can just scan that QR code. How's everybody doing today? Are you doing well? April, it's great to see you're back, and we're able to get in from the beginning. Jim, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well. Brad, it's great you're doing well as well. So around local SEO and local visibility, what's everyone's top question right now? Or you just want to learn more? Yeah, so that's a great question, Brad. Local SEO is independent of website SEO, but totally is supportive and foundational to it. Literally, I tell people before they even do a website, doing their Google business profile and Bing Places and Yelp is the first thing you should do. So local SEO, I'll talk about a little later, is up to 40% of your search ranking because Google looks at your geographic relevance, like how close you are to your client. And that's a huge ranking factor or decider on who shows up. All right, well, why don't we get going? Again, this is online tune up for the green industry. Fix your local profile and get more leads. We're going to go over several things that are really foundational to your visibility. So we're going to strengthen your local foundation, which is your Google business profile, your Bing Places, Yelp, things like that. We're going to talk about the consistency of your info and how to use ads to generate qualified leads. This presentation is presented with Ewing Corporation, and it's part of our marketing webinar series. There's really like 9 different things that drive or manage your visibility. And what we're going to talk about today is your organic and paid factors, a little bit about reputation management, and getting a better return on investment. Everbearing Services is a full service agency. We provide everything from websites to newsletters to marketing campaigns and SEO and advertising. I've been in the industry over 25 years, or since 2009, I correct myself, and I've been active in our industry. I'm on the board, state board of OLCA, and we're active with WALP, NALP, and CLCA. Professionally, before this, I have 14 patents issued and 22 pending. Within the Moz community, which is a community of SEOs, I'm ranked 109 in the world based on skills and expertise out of 536,000 members. Most new business comes from referrals, so we're highly trusted by clients. We've helped 6 of our clients achieve a buyout. And I think the most important thing is we have a 7% turnover since 2009 versus the industry average of 24 to 48%. So we've got 3 different areas we're going to talk about. Your local foundation, which it really is your foundation, your business information consistency and social trust, advertising and local ads. So first and foremost, if you haven't done it, you need to claim your business profile. And as simple as it sounds, a lot of profiles are not ever fully filled out. And so just do the basic step of going through your profile and making sure that everything's in there. That's going to, until you're doing that, you're not going to be visible on most searches. Again, Google, they've got 65% 65 ranking factors, and your local or geographic relevance is like a 40% weight on all searches. So if you don't have your Google business profile and your local set up, you really are missing out on a lot of opportunity. So on your profile, there's a couple pitfalls. One is, as I just mentioned, kind of a ghost listing where you're missing service areas or you've got an incomplete setup. We're going to talk about stock photos and why you shouldn't use them, and The other is setting up communication with your clients via SMS or WhatsApp app. And then obviously, if your profile is stagnant, it doesn't help you. So, first and foremost, a lot of times people will try to do kind of a snazzy name on their Google business profile that's not the same as their business name. Don't do that. One of the things we're going to talk a little bit more about later in this presentation is the importance of NAP, name, address, phone number, that you want to have a consistent NAP. And if you don't have that, it actually tanks your visibility. So that simple thing is super important. I would match the spelling exactly, spaces exactly, everything. You want to pick a category in services. Until you've picked those things out, you're not going to have visibility for the services you provide. And you want to really list your service areas, and then you want to have a real trackable phone number. And so one of the things that Google allows now is you can have your business number, which again, you can set that up as a virtual trackable number. You can also have a secondary number set as the primary one that shows up, which is actually a tracking number. You want to always keep your hours updated and add any special hours. Like if you're going to close down early, you want to have the habit of updating your Google business profile in Bing places. And you need to write a short description of who you are and what you do. So first thing is choose your category. So, you want to figure out what your main categories and your secondary categories are. For each landscaping business, that can be different. For someone that does primarily design and maybe provides, for example, drainage solutions, you would not want to have drainage solutions as your primary category. You'd want to have design. Whereas if you're primarily doing irrigation, you'd want to have irrigation as your primary business. And if you also do landscaping design, you're going to want to set that up as a secondary. And setting up these relevant services is a big part of how clients are going to find you. New thing, many of you that have established profile, a new thing that you can do, and consumers are wanting more transparency now. And so one of the things you can do to make your profile stand out is you can put in pricing for services. And if you have a fixed price, you can do that. Or you can say, let's say it's a retaining wall. Maybe that's from $5,000. The other thing is this is where, like for concrete masonry, you can actually put in a service description. And it is really helpful to put a description of each service. It's another way to highlight what you do. Super duper important. You want to define your service area. A lot of times people will set up their profile and they won't put in their service areas, and Google uses that to determine which areas and services you're relevant to. And so you want to put in the zip codes or names of the cities, or whatever information you have about your service area to dial that in. And then, just like anything else, you want to prune any areas that you don't really want to provide. So it's like if you'll provide a service to XYZ place, but it's got to be a large value, you may want to decide not to put that in your profile, because at a certain point, if you add every service area in the world, you can actually dilute your visibility, because you're trying to have too big of a reach for where you're at. Similarly, kind of going back to the services, the internet police is not going to ding you if you don't provide every service on your Google business profile. I would only highlight the services that you want to get. Like if you do irrigation startups and shutdowns, but you hate doing it, don't put it in your profile. Don't put it on your website. Likewise, if there's a service, like if you really like to do retaining walls, or you really like to do irrigation, definitely highlight that. So you can obviously list your services, you can add those details as I previously highlighted. And on the product side, any of you that do sell plants or materials, add the materials you sell. Okay. So you want to pick a primary category in services. You want to use your trackable phone number, keep your hours updated, and write a short description. Okay, so a new feature that you can add on the profile, which is helpful, is you can add appointment links so that people can book with you. You should integrate your social media if you're active on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok or other profiles. And you want to have your main site, and then you can also highlight service specific pages within your descriptions. So the other is, along with the service areas, you want to add your opening date. And a lot of people look at that as, kind of how long you've been there and been in business. And that's important. They want to know you've been around more than a year. Or if you've only been around a year, that's how it is. It'll build over time. And then the other thing a lot of people don't know is sometimes people who are aggressive on SEO will do what's called black hat SEO, and they'll do fake listings. And you're okay to report those listings if you know that they're fake. The other feature they used to have, Google had like a really kind of clunky communication, and now you can add your SMS or WhatsApp number directly into the profile so people can communicate directly with you. I would encourage you, if you're a small company and it's just yourself, to use your SMS number or WhatsApp number if you want to buffer. And then within a company where you've got several people involved, use an SMS app, or again, you can use a shared WhatsApp. And again, it's kind of a thing that you want to have it as easy as possible for your customers to communicate with you. And a lot of people, they don't want to call you anymore. A lot of times they prefer to do it in text, especially if they're like working in an office or they're in an environment where it's not conducive to calling. So once the Google business profile is up, one of the things that you need to do is put a Google post. Google posts are just simple announcements. They can be discounts, they can be events, it could be certifications you've received, anything to kind of keep people updated about your company. You want to do that at a bare minimum once a month. And if that, is all you can do, great, but it's better to at least post weekly. The more you post, the more visibility it provides. The other new feature that a lot of people that have established profiles are not aware of is, again, Google had a really clunky FAQ feature, and they've updated it to where you can actually put in your own FAQs. If you're interested in answer engine optimization or AI optimization, this is a simple way you can do it. And what I tell my clients to do is, you want to think about the common questions that people ask you about or common concerns they have. A great way to address them is in your FAQs. And the bonus round is that if somebody's doing AI search, they commonly look through the FAQs and oftentimes you'll come up. So, for example, I have a client in the Bend area that does garden design and landscape design, and she answered a bunch of questions about that particular topic. And she recently got a client that found her through AI, and she was like the recommended source because she was the only source in Bend that was talking about that. So there's really a great opportunity here through this simple FAQ to improve your results on AI. So I would not ignore this, and I would really use this feature. Another tip that you can look at is, if you do a search, you'll see on the bottom for that search, like if it's a search you want to show up on, a lot of searches on the bottom, there'll be people also asked about, and they'll say whatever it is. For example, and I'm making this up, but you do a search on landscape design, and maybe it'll say people also asked about decorative rock or decorative retaining walls or something like that. Those are good little clues. If there's searches you want to show up on, you want to create FAQs for those searches, and that's going to help you for AI search, and that's also going to help you for voice search. All right, well, this is what everybody hates dealing with is reviews. You want to build your credibility and trust signals. And so people, when they review you, they are wanting real work. So cell phone's great. They want to see your vehicles. And again, that kind of shows them that you're a real company. So showing those vehicles off is a good thing. You want to upload photos of your license, insurance, and certifications. You obviously want to do customer reviews. And if there's any professional groups like your state association, or if you're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, all those things help you. And your clients actually want to know about those things. Unless you don't have any photos at all, you don't want to use stock images. People can normally tell that that's what it is. They're much happier with a smartphone photo, and it's going to perform a lot better for you. They love these before and after. So essentially showing a photo of your work before you started and then a work after you completed, right? And showing how it transforms things. This is if you're doing design build and you're creating beautiful landscapes, this is what people are buying. They're buying what you do. So it's really important to highlight that. As I said, I know it's crazy, but company vehicles and your equipment, clients love to see that because they know that you can perform the work. And basically, just take photos of your vehicles or your team and things like that, and just upload it with a description on the photo into your Google business profile. And again, this is all like customers, they're making it for them a big transaction. And so they want to know that you're a real company. And so your associations validate that and show that you're a professional in the industry. You want to feature these things not just on your Google business profile, but I would integrate this into your website and your vehicles and other areas that customers look to decide whether they do business with you. And so reviews, it's related to all this. You want to obviously have a bunch of 4-star, 5-star reviews. These reviews create credibility with potential clients. It's also one of the ways that Google determines how you rank in the map map for different keywords. So you want to try to get reviews around your different services and figure out what those services are you want to focus on, and I would actively work on getting clients to review for those things. And so here's a few ways you can do this. One is sending people a text right after the job with a direct link to write the review. You can use a reviews reputation management dashboard to help you reach out to people. And one of my favorites, I do not work for the company, but Zappy Card, they're a cool little product. You can upload your Google link or whatever review link you want, and essentially, and I don't know if any of you had problems getting people. You'll ask them for the review and then they don't do it. Anybody out there do that? Have that issue? Yeah, okay. So, yeah. Well, so these Zappy cards are really cool. When you go up to the customer and ask them for a review, when they say yes, you just tap their phone and the review screen comes up. And I've had clients quadruple their rate of reviews by just integrating that into their process. The other thing I've had people do is they'll use a bit.ly link, they'll do a compressed URLs and doing a different one for each team member. and that lets you track who gets reviews, and then they do contests and kind of make it fun. But that's one thing I would recommend you check out. The other common pitfall that people have is that they will try to get a bunch of reviews at once. And the problem with that is Google actually starts to think those are spam. So don't just batch the reviews. It's much better. Like, obviously, if it's like slow in the wintertime or something and you have time, that is a good time to work on reviews. But overall, you want to just make it a part of your business. And you do want to respond to reviews, whether they're good or bad. My advice on a negative review is to remember that your audience is whomever is reading it. So it's not written for the reviewer, it's written for the audience, the people reading the reviews later. So you want to respond to every review, good or bad, be neutral and respond in a way that does not antagonize the reviewer if it's a negative review. And just again, remember, I think all of us know that there's people that were dropped on their head as a kid and just have a terrible point of view towards everything. And so, really what somebody reading reviews is looking for is how management reviews it. The other tip I would give you is to, before you respond to a review, if it's a bad one, go into the flagging section and read Google's guidelines. And if the review doesn't meet Google's guidelines, flag it. And you need to do that before you respond. If you respond, Google won't do anything. But if you flag it a lot of times, and a real common one is people will put in whoever they went with or with another company, and that actually violates their guidelines. Or if it's somebody that's an employee or somebody that's has a conflict of some sort, that violates guidelines. So those are a couple things you may want to consider looking at. And you want to do the review requests right away. Okay, so I get asked how many reviews that you need to have. And, some basic guidelines is 20 reviews makes you credible. 50 to 100 kind of gives you a competitive edge. And you want to have kind of a steady flow of these. One trick is to Google top landscapers in your area that perform similar services and look at their review count. And you want to shoot for hitting whatever number of reviews your top competitor has, which you may not achieve overnight, but working towards that is a good goal. And then the other tricky thing is to look at what services the reviews your competitors have reviewed. And if they're primary services for you, you need to make extra effort there because that's going to affect your map pack. And you also want to look for gaps, like if there's services that your competitors provide but they don't have any reviews for, that's kind of a hole that through reviews you can make yourself show up on the map pack or show up more prominently on local searches. So I know that for many of you, expletives will come out when Yelp comes up because they are they are frustrating to deal with. But the problem is, because they filter their reviews, Google actually gives them a higher weight on search. Like a Yelp review is 10 times more valuable than a Google review. So the other issue is all the alternative search engines, including Bing and DuckDuckGo and that other set outside of Google, the review platform they use is Yelp. And so, quick trip for you. A lot of people, they get frustrated because they'll have people review them on Yelp and then they'll get filtered out. And that's primarily because Yelp does that primarily because What they don't want is people to go out and get all their friends to get them reviews on Yelp and just have all these fake reviews. And so Google doesn't do this. They'll like take anybody and you just have to flag them. On Yelp, they're looking for people to reviewers. And so one trick that you can do is you can go into the friend finder on Yelp. So sign up for your own Yelp account. You can go into the friend finder and you can put in the email addresses for your clients and it'll tell you which clients review on Yelp on a regular basis. And so those are the clients that you want to ask for a Yelp review. It's obviously natural for them because they're already writing reviews on Yelp. And I'll even recommend having a second NFC card or Zappy card for Yelp and just only use it with the clients that show up on Friend Finder. The other thing on Yelp you want to do, just like Google Business Profiles, is you want to upload photos, you want to add the categories of what you do, and obviously showcase customer reviews. All the same stuff you would do on Yelp. And then you want to update your service hours. And then these are paid features that you can add that do help, is to add your company logo. You can create a slideshow of your products. Again, portfolios, just like on your website, does sell work. And again, Yelp tends to be the C in consumer. They tend to be smaller deals. But if you're doing kind of residential, this is an important platform to not forget. And then the other one that is worth paying for is you can get rid of competitor ads on your profile so that people aren't looking at somebody else. And again, call to action, request a call now. That improves your response rate. Anyway, this is off topic, but we just threw this in because we thought it was helpful. You want to basically use the neighbors around that see the yard you just did, and door hangers or flyers at 4 to 5 nearby homes does help. And mention that you completed a project on their street. So, does anybody have any questions about Google Business Profile and Bing and Yelp profiles and asking about reviews? Have all of you guys been pretty successful at getting reviews? Oh, and yes, GBP is Google Business Profile. I apologize for using that lingo. So, Steve, what's holding you back on stuff, or are you just setting things up? Okay. Well, hopefully this gives you some ideas of what to do. So Google Business Profile, you have to have a Google Business Profile to do local service ads. Local service ads are driven by the Google Business Profile. You don't need to have one for PPC, but it is recommended that you do the local service profile, the Google Business Profile, before you do PPC, because it does help drive conversions. And Brad, yeah, that's great as far as the reviews, asking for a review right after payment while they're excited. The other tip, if you're doing design build, is and do some kind of incentive or get their agreement. One of the problems that you run into is that when you first build out a landscape, it has to grow in and kind of fill out before it looks really good. And so a lot of landscapers, what they're doing to be successful is, along with that review, they're actually locking in a time in 6 to 12 months to come back and take photos of their landscape. Sometimes they'll include a yard freshening up or clean up because they want that done for their photos. But that is a good time to lock those in. All right. Well, okay. So yeah. So if you run out of your home address, should you keep that listed for location-based search or try to get the address off? So Brad, there's two ways you can approach it. You can do a service area business, and that doesn't show your home address, but it uses your address to give you visibility. The downside is Google really wants an address and some place that you can meet with people, even though, again, you're never going to meet with anybody outside of, nobody ever meets with anybody at their house or at their location. I mean, maybe once in a while. If you're comfortable, it is better to list your home address, because that gives you better visibility in the MacPack. There is the downside that somebody could go in and pull up your address on Google Maps and see that it's your house, but 99% of people won't. And basically, it works just fine. I think in 16 years of having people list their home address, because I deal with a lot of landscapers that are under 1 million, so they don't have an office yet. I've heard of one client showing up at somebody's house. So it's not normally a problem. Clients expect you to come to them. So I would recommend your home address if you're comfortable with that. All right, well, any other questions on this area before we move on? Okay. Okay, so this is a little nerdy, but it really does help you out. You need to have consistent business information. In the SEO world, this is called your NAP, name, address, phone number. And so search engines are trying to aggregate information, and they're trying to figure out who is the most credible. And one of the ways they do that is by citations. And what citations are, and again, the guys at Google were like Stanford University graduate students. And so in the professional educational world, a paper that has more people citing it, it's like almost like votes, and it becomes more credible. And so basically, the more citations that somebody has, the more credible they are. And then there's just like in the real world, we have people that have more credibility. Like for example, if your company, I had a nonprofit I worked with that was linked to the White House, so whitehouse.org, and that link was a more powerful link than the local chamber of commerce. And so just like people have standing, links have standing, and obviously more links are better, but if the links are or the citations are that's called an inbound link. And if the citations are more credible, you're going to do better. So like .org, .gov, these type of association or government links are actually really good links to get if you can get them. Again, your association link or other places on the internet talking about you improves these inbound links or citations. But you want to have a consistent name, address, and phone number on all those links. Otherwise, Google's not going to put it together. And just the most fundamental example is that's why you want to have your Google business profile match your website, because if, as stupid as it sounds, if it's not exactly matching, Google won't create the citation between the business and the website, which is pretty important. So you want to like go through your links, and you want to, if there's outdated hours, you want to update them. You want to look for wrong phone numbers. You need to update addresses, and it's a little bit of a slog, but keeping that up is a really good thing to do. And so you want to have it correct on your directories, which we're going to go into in a minute: Google, Yelp, Bing, social media. And then one of the tools, so my company, we build citations for our clients, and you can do manual or you can do automated. And to get your base citations, like you can get between 50 and 106 external links to your business. And basically, the tools that people use is Bright Local, Whitespark, Advice Local, and Yext. Usually small businesses use Yext because it's the simplest, and it's like $50 a month. But what's good about that is they will go to all the aggregators and distribute your information, and they will maintain consistency across all their links. And Advice Local is very similar. We like to use Bright Local and White Spark. You can do so Advice Local and Yext, it's like it's a monthly fee and they kind of keep it up for you. Bright Local and White Spark are different. You pay for the link, but then once it's set up, you have to go out and maintain it, and they flag it, but you have to monitor it. So Bright's Local and White Spark are more labor intensive, but the benefit of that is you can modify things faster real time, and then you can add in to your Bright Local profile all the local links that they wouldn't know about. And then White Spark is a tool that we use with Bright Local to get links, build links around our profile. So again, that's custom links. So kind of the basic is more like Advice Local and Yext, and that just kind of gets it done. If you really want to be a little more advanced, you want to use Bright Local or White Spark, but that is more labor intensive. And again, some great inbound links is like your Chamber of Commerce. Better Business Bureau, as dumb as it sounds, has like if you're dealing with consumers, has a huge amount of credibility. They figured that out, unfortunately, and now they're charging like $50 to $75 to have their link on your website. But again, if you're doing a lot of consumer work, it's worth spending that extra money. And again, your local associations is outside of your industry. So if there's any neighborhood groups or things you're involved in, get them to link. And that's again, Google looks for geographic relevance. And so showing things that you're doing in your community really builds that up and gives you a higher weighting on that important category. And so also sponsoring events, or things at schools or local teams, that helps you on local search, partnering with nearby vendors and businesses. And all of this stuff creates credibility and backlinks to your website. And then this is kind of a trick. There's several ways you can do this, but getting press releases out on the wire periodically, that gets you visibility in your local market. That press release will show up as news for, weeks to months. And so if you've got new services or if you've got new equipment, or some people do announcements for employees, if you're doing a community project, I would definitely do a release. But what's great about spending the money on a release is you've got not just your local news sources, but you've also got the blogosphere out there. And even for your local activity, when you go to a blog, or sorry, to a press release, you can have up to 300 blogs pick your press release up. It's kind of insane. I started doing this for clients, and I've been just totally surprised by how much credibility. The other thing is local news outlets are often starved for news. And so if you think it might be an interest story or something that a news outlet would be interested in, I would reach out and get them your press release, and, and you'd be surprised how much it gets picked up. So people don't really do these a lot. And it's kind of like a hidden tool, and I can't recommend them enough. And then this is just, again, a tip. We've given you all this information about building up your NAP and your name, address, phone number, and, go through your site and make sure the information is consistent and that everything kind of works. And I said this in the last presentation too, and the reason why I did that is it's so important. So, all right. So the NAP and, your trust signals and things like that is kind of a different subject. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so one of the questions was, what if you have different phone numbers on different service pages for attribution that would rec consisting with their profile for phone number, right? Okay, so Casey, you actually want to use a virtual number. And so if somebody knows what they're doing, and an example of this might be like CallRail, or another example might be What Converts. Our tracking software, FieldFlow, does it as well, but they do what's called a tracking number. It's like a virtual number, and it looks like a graphic, and it pastes over your real number. And basically, the the real number is what Google sees, and then the tracking number is like a graphic. And then the way you get around that on your Google business profile is you go ahead and add a secondary tracking number. They allow that now, and that doesn't screw up your name, address, phone number, or NAP. So that was a super long answer, Casey, but hopefully that helps. And Brad, you're asking about the importance of Google versus Yelp. So Yelp is more important if you're really focused on residential and consumers. Google is like your foundation. Like Google affects other search engines and they affect a lot of different things. So you want to focus on your Google business profile first. If you're doing a lot of residential and smaller jobs, kind of a trick to get around that is to do your Yelp. And then I didn't really mention it earlier, but I realized I should. Bing Places, it's only 5% of the search market. However, and I think it's because it's people that are older or they don't have time, like managers and owners. That 5% has the most spending power over Google. And so, kind of a trick because most people don't list on Bing Places, putting yourself on very affluent consumers. And then Brad, you asked about Nextdoor. We're going to talk about that in a minute. That's kind of a newcomer. But yes, if you have time Nextdoor is kind of this hybrid between a listing and social media. And if you have time to maintain Nextdoor, again, if you're going towards consumer, it's a really good source. And then April, if the information changes, like your phone number, what's the best way to update it? So you have to go in and update it on your website and then your Google business profile, and then look at where else you have citations. So if you have Bing and Yelp, you want to update it there, and you kind of want to do it as fast as you can. And that's also why a lot of people use the citation services for all the other directories, because you can update one phone number and it'll replicate to all the directories that are listed in that service. Does that answer your question, April? Cool. Cool. All right. Well, before we go into the crazy world of advertising, are there any other questions? I'm good. All right, guys. You're all being really patient here. Okay, we're going to talk about advertising and local service ads. So you got to have a Google business profile to do a local service ad. You want to do a few things. You want to really focus on your service area because the local service ads are driven off of your Google business profile, which is that 40% of search. You want to add all relevant job types. And by the way, if there's not work you want to pay for ads for, do not put it in your local service ads. One way you can control the type of leads you have is by really staying on top of your services. And then in order to show up, Google needs to know the licenses that are provided. One of the problems that Google has is they're managing people all across the country and licensing requirements change. And so sometimes Google will tell you there's a license required when there isn't. I recently reached out to the Oregon Contractors Board for somebody that did something that didn't require a license in Oregon, but it requires in other states. And I had to get a letter from the Contractors Board stating that a license wasn't required, that their normal contractor's license worked. So you can dispute these things, but you have to stay on top of it. So if Google comes back and says you need a license and there isn't one required, don't throw up your hands. You just need to work with them to get it sorted out. And the other thing, and we're going to go into this a little more, is so Google local service ads, part of why they're so cheap to run, and to give you an idea, with an agency, like doing local service ads is like $250 a month usually. And then AdWords or Google ads is about $1,000 a month through an agency. And that's because of the labor. And there's less labor with local service ads. So you have to interact with Google on it or you won't get the results. So you want to go through, and first of all, if Google, I get a complaint from people that they're getting bad leads, you want to go through and rate the leads as they come in. The other thing is you want to mark jobs as booked, and after the job's done, you want to ask for reviews. Google actually monitors that, and if you're not giving them constant interaction, they go, oh, well, he must be or she must be too busy, and so they may not need leads, and that will actually decrease your lead activity. So like the more you interact, the more results you're going to get from local service ads. So don't just set local service ads up. You have to do the job of rating the leads so you don't get bad leads. The more feedback you give them, the better leads they'll give you. And you want to mark those jobs as booked when you get them. And that those two things, along with getting reviews on your work, is going to stimulate your activity. I've got obviously several clients running local service ads, and the clients that interact on a regular basis get 10 times the leads and their cost per lead goes down. All right, so this is kind of a growth point for landscapers. Most people start out with local service ads and they graduate to Google ads. The difference between Google ads or AdWords and local service ads is that you provide specific ads for each service. And so you can control your budgets, and you can control your budget for each service, so you can give more money to the services you want to get. And basically you want to have a specific page for that to perform. And so landing pages increase conversion by like 70%. You want to add negative keywords so that you're not paying for clicks for services that are not related or that you don't want to provide. So you don't want to have your ad show up on the wrong searches. And you want to utilize funnels when scheduling. You want to have lead magnets, which are just things that I talked about in the previous seminar. Those are items that somebody might want. So for example, it could be 10 top things for developing a new landscape, or what to look for when hiring a hardscape contractor, or what to do to plan your irrigation. Something that a consumer is going to be willing to release their information for, that helps stimulate form conversions. But just people ask me what the difference between ads and why Google ads are more expensive to manage, and why they take more time. And it's really a labor thing. So if you're doing Google ads, you're going to want to update this as well as continue to update the campaign to be most effective. But the rookie move is most people put the campaign to their homepage, and then the customer has to find the relevant page for the service. You want to have the service match the ad, and you want that ad to go to a relevant landing page. That also, by the way, all this stuff increases what's called your quality score of the ads, because Google wants you to have relevant ads, and higher quality score actually lowers your cost per click and your overall advertising cost. So all this stuff's going to help you convert more, but it's also going to give you a higher quality score, which helps us get better value out of ads. So I know that's a little complicated. Google Ads is more complicated, But if you really want to drive up your conversions and your services warrant it, you can increase your revenues by, you know, hundreds of thousands to millions per year, depending on your ad budget. I mean, I've had people run budgets as low as 2,000 a month, and many of the larger landscapers in the areas will run 15 or $30,000 campaigns, and they're not doing that for their health. They're doing it because they're getting, you know, significantly more services than the ads are costing them. And then all of this stuff with ads. So again, ads, you can adjust everything, which is great, but you want to constantly, when you change something, you want to look at all the stats and measure and test, and you always want to be improving the ads. So, and then Yelp ads, again, I have people that absolutely hate Yelp ads, and I have other people that like Yelp ads. And so the people, you know, and what I found is the people that like Yelp ads are really looking at more consumer and smaller deals. Like there are some landscaping businesses, it may be you, that want to do a bunch of deals, you know, kind of like Pac-Man getting a bunch of deals all at once, and you don't want larger deals. Yelp is the platform for you. It's also a really good platform to start out. So good for smaller jobs, good for maintenance if you're doing residential maintenance. You can boost your ads with keywords. You want to, again, just like Google Business Profile, you want to define 5 or 6 service areas, and you want to target by service area to reach local homeowners. And it's important to build out galleries and reviews. And then kind of the new hotness in residential is Nextdoor. You're going to want to create a profile to advertise on Nextdoor. You want to get reviews on Nextdoor, which is they call recommendations, and more recommendations give you a higher rank in neighborhood searches. And then when you advertise, you can you can get a higher ranking on your ads. And a lot of people doing residential work are getting a lot of benefit and a lot of leads out of Nextdoor. All right. Well, any questions on that? Or I went over quite a bit when it comes to advertising. Does anybody have any questions about these? Like local service ads, Google ads, or Yelp ads? All right. Well, Everbearing Services, you know, we're here to work with you, and we're doing this education to support your business and your growth. We grow landscaping companies, and you know, we're focused from the start with our clients, and so we work under $1 million, and then we help people grow to regional dominance. We've provided this with Ewing Outdoor Supply, and really appreciate all of you attending. We really hope that this was valuable to you. We're going to send a survey out after the webinar, and we would really appreciate it if you would give us feedback. And it would really help us if you let us know if there's topics that you're concerned about, like if you know you're worried about AI and what to do with that, or if you're worried about planning, or what, you know, whatever your concerns are, let us know and we will get that into the series. But again, we really would appreciate response on reviews. All right, well, I appreciate everyone, and any final questions before we sign off for the day here? All right. Well, listen, I hope everyone has a great day, and really grateful that you gave me the opportunity to work with you and hopefully help your business grow. Thanks and have a great day.